Just for those of you at home watching, the meeting has not begun yet, so you're not getting any audio.
Oh, yeah.
And so I'll call the meeting to order you. And so the second item on the agenda is the elections, and pursuant to Section 3.1 of the Police Services Board Protocol Bylaw 01-001 and 96-001, elections for the positions of Chair and Vice Chair of the Board of the Police Services Board will be conducted. So I'll give the chair to the Administrator to conduct the nominations for Chair.
I move Lloyd Ferguson for Chair.
Seconder for that. Thank you. Member Ferguson, will you stand for election?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Close the nominations.
Is there a seconder to close the nominations? All those in favor? Thank you. Congratulations, Member Ferguson.
You have to ask opposed to. Madeline's speech, Fred said no. So, but thank you everyone for the confidence, and the board members for the confidence, and being your chair again for 2015. I look forward to working with all of you and with the senior command and with certainly all the staff of the Hamilton Police Services as your board chair for 2015. Okay, we'll now open the floor for the election of a vice chair. Is there any nominations? Stan? Second? Okay. Are there any other nominations? Motion to close nominations? Stan? Irene, all in favor of closing nominations? Question? Go ahead.
We passed a position that we rotate the vice chair. Is that no longer a standing motion?
That could have been a motion that you could have placed today.
Is that no longer standing? Is that now?
No, that was for, we did, as I understand it, Lois, maybe I should let you understand this, but as I understand it, the election of chair and vice chair occur once per year in January. And last January was the decision of the board to rotate the vice chair every 2 months.
That is correct. And then you do it every January of your first meeting of the year. You re-elect chair and vice chair.
Thank you.
I would move that we rotate, consistent with the last term of the board, that we rotate the vice chair. I think it's a great exercise. Thank you.
Okay. We need a seconder for that. Well, is there any other nominations then? So, Madam Administrator, I don't know how we handle this. Do we vote or do we do secret ballot? We've received 2 nominations or 2 recommendations. Can I get your advice on this?
Well, at this point, I believe you have a motion on the floor to elect Madeline as your vice chair, correct? Sorry, I was kind of doing something else at that time. So,
Could I suggest, Madam Chair, just to save any,
But just let Lois finish, then I'll come back to you and anybody else who likes to speak. Go ahead, Lois.
I believe you should deal with that
The motion to appoint.
motion.
I was just following the protocol you followed for the chair, where there was a motion to close nominations and then there was
Correct.
no others that come in that particular case.
Normally, you would ask 3 times for nominations, if there's any further nominations, and then you close nominations, and then you vote.
Correct. And
And then-
we're moving forward the motion to close nominations, and then we had a second nomination. So what's your advice then? You say we should be voting on the first nomination first?
Well, the second one really isn't a nomination. It's a movement to change the vice chair to a rotating chair again for 2015.
Okay.
I believe you have to deal with the motion on the floor with respect to Madeline's.
Okay, so
Member
that's, the
Levy's.
administrators ruled that, but Councillor Whitehead.
I think it'd be easier to either dispose or agree to the rotation without any embarrassment, and then if that fails or succeeds, then it will naturally provide the path for the next course of action. But if you want to go to the nomination without going to the rotation, that's fine, but there could be a downside to it.
Okay, well, unless the board wants to challenge the chair, I agree with the decision of the administrator, or I'll accept the decision of the administrator, that we should first vote on the first nomination. If that fails, then we can go back to the second one. That's my position, unless there's objections to that. Seeing none then, so there's a motion moved and seconded to nominate Madeline as the vice chair. All in favor? Opposed? That motion carries. So congratulations, Madeline. Okay, let's move on now. Yeah, we can on that. Presentations, members of the month. Ann.
Good afternoon, Police Services Board Chair, Police Services Board members, Chief Caire, Deputy Chief Gert, Deputy Chief Wetherill, senior officers, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Maggie Schoen, and I am the Executive Officer to Chief Caire. Today, I would like to present the Member of the Month Awards. I would like to invite Constable Michael Logue and Constable Mark Phibbs to please come forward. On August 17, 2014 at 9:50 p.m., Hamilton Police received information from a citizen within a residential apartment building that a wanted person had returned to their residence. The male was wanted in relation to uttering forged documents and failing to comply with a recognizance. Officers Logue and Phibbs attended the apartment and were invited in by the male after having a brief conversation at the door. The male wanted to retrieve identification prior to leaving under arrest. Inside the apartment, the male was initially cooperative, but suddenly and drastically changed his demeanor, produced a knife, and threatened the officers. The officers took appropriate steps to manage the risks and engaged the male in tactical communication. The communication slowly worked after an extended period of time. He ultimately agreed with the direction of the officers, he dropped the knife, and was arrested without further incident and with no injuries. Officer Logue and Phibbs showed an excellent example of communication and crisis negotiations. They both support the service's commitment to responding to people in our community who are in crisis. Please join me in congratulating Constable Michael Logue and Constable Mark Phibbs on being selected as recipients of the Member of the Month Award. I would now like to invite Constable Alex Buck to please come forward. On October 24, 2014, an armed male entered the BMO Bank located on Barton Street East. He ordered one of the employees towards the vault while other employees exited the bank and waited in the parking lot. It appeared the male had second thoughts and he fled the bank on foot. The employees followed him in a vehicle and on foot while calling 911. Officer Buck was the first to arrive in the area and the armed male was pointed out walking along the roadway. Officer Buck recognized that the safety of the public was in jeopardy, as well as the employees following him. He challenged the male and arrested him in a high-risk takedown. The ensuing search of the male's backpack revealed a loaded semi-automatic handgun, a revolver, and ammunition. As a result of Officer Buck's actions and arrest, 2 firearms have been removed from the streets of Hamilton, and an extremely dangerous bank robber was captured quickly with no injuries to the public, no injuries to officers, and no injuries to the robber himself. Officer Buck showed a level of dedication to duty and to the safety of the public with his quick response and bravery. Please join me in congratulating Constable Alex Buck on being selected as the recipient of the Member of the Month Award.
Okay, we'll move on now to general. Is there any declarations of interest from any board members on anything on the agenda today? Seeing none, move on to consent items, and so I'll come back again to 5.1 for non-omnibus resolution for all the consent items. So 5.2 is the adoption of the minutes of December the 15th. Any questions? 5.3, the Hamilton Police Services Monthly Report. 5.4, registration information to attend the 24th Annual Police Employment Conference. Registration information to attend the Canadian Association of Police Governance Summit Session 2015, the Police Governance Paradigm. Yes.
I believe that there's been some interest as the chair of the Governance and Policy Committee. I put my name forward, I believe, and I was very excited to hear that board member Stan Tick has also shown some interest in attending that particular conference. So, and Madeline? Well, Madeline goes to all the conferences, so that'd be great to have her there too. So I look forward to that. I just wanted to highlight that. Thank you. Okay, so you have 3 registrations. I picked up on 3 registrations so far, Lois. We'll move on, and then for the information of the board is correspondence from the Assistant Deputy Minister of Community Safety and Correctional Services with respect to the Police Service Board vacancy information sheets, and correspondence from the Canadian Association of Police Governance with respect to the call for resolutions for the CAPG 26th Annual Meeting. Correspondence from Catherine Palmer, President, Canadian Association of Police Governance, with respect to the board's generous support and commitment to the CAPG as the Canadian Association of Police Governance over the past year. And correspondence from the outgoing President of the Angola community with respect to the Angolian Association of Hamilton. So I see no one raising any issues on any of those topics, so can I have a motion to approve the consent items? Moved by Madeline, seconded by Irene. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. So we have a delegation request now from John Neary, the Beasley Neighborhood Association, to provide a deputation to the board. And just to inform the board, he also appeared before council, and it was council's recommendation that he in fact come speak to the Police Services Board because it's regarding the external design of the investigative services facility. So can I have a motion to approve this,
Terry, Irene, Madeline, all in favor? Carried. And we have the 6.2, which is the proposed capital budget 2015 to 2025. This is something that this CFO, Mike Zagaric of the City of Hamilton, is looking for. There's a report before you. Say, open up for comments or questions. Councillor Whitehead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I'm really happy that we finally see a capital budget that lays out all the needs now and into the near future. I don't remember the last time we've had a presentation in this way. So I want to thank the police services for doing that. But you can see, Mr. Chair, that there's some pretty significant expenditures here for the foreseeable future. So $1 million for a horse stable, for one, is the one that struck out to me. So I'm not sure how we go through the priority list on those capital expenditures, understanding that the city's shortfalls and their, because help me understand this, but my understanding is that these requests would go to the City of Hamilton through their capital process for consideration. Is that correct?
Yeah, as you know, we got the capital budget before City Council right now, and will be debated again tomorrow. And city staff already have this list. They have for quite some time, but I was approached by Mike Zagaric that we should get board approval on this. And so I've asked the chief to put it on the agenda for today with the explanations for them. I can also share with you, based on your comments, that I've spoken with the chief before this meeting. I think that it's my view as chair that our number one focus on 2015 has got to be the investigative or the forensic building. And I don't want to distract from that from a lot of other things that may be able to get pushed back. So we've agreed that, subject to board approval, of course, that the marine facility replacement expansion can move to the 2016, so it'll come back next year. The command van can move to 2016, so that'll come back next year. And that the horse stables, I've jumped all over them too, Cherry. Mind you, I may be in a bit of a conflict because they're in Ancaster now, the fairgrounds, but they can be pushed back to 2025, which is 10 years off, so we got lots of time to discuss those. So those three changes I would propose. Now we need a motion to do that if that's acceptable to you. But clearly the Police Investigative Services headquarters is very immediate, and there is a lot of other capital pressures, particularly around roads, that the city is facing. And I want to be, when we get to council, I want to be the Police Investigative Services headquarters to be the focus that we try to get approval on.
So my challenge, Mr. Chair, is that we're looking at the hardest need, the most acute need right now, as I understand it, is 12,000 square feet to accommodate the forensic component. So can I get clarification? Is that the most acute need we have right now?
Chief?
I will agree in part. The forensics facility is priority number one, but it is a 50,000 square foot facility that is at issue. Given the space needs analysis over the last 15 years and the space needs deficits, the distribution of our separate investigative components of our organization all over the city. The plan has always been 50,000. Forensics will complain only a part of that, but it is in entirety 50,000, and that is the priority.
So, Mr. Chair, again, I think I heard that the acute, because I mean, we need to define acute, chronic, deficit, have a better way of weighting these capital projects. But to suggest that 50,000, all 50,000 is acute, I would say there's a deficit. But what I find acute, because we're putting it on the same level as walking through our forensic center, which is I think currently around, what is it, 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, we can see that there's a dire need to address that on the more immediate horizon. So again, if I'm as a board member knowing, Councillor Ferguson and the mayor and I have the fortune of having a better understanding where the city stands on their capital budget, I really want to bring this down another layer and clearly understand what are the most important components with these proposals. I've been told that there's 12,000 square feet that is the most acute piece of that 50,000 square foot forensic facility, which only 12,000 is actually the forensic component.
So just to paraphrase your question so we all understand it, make sure I'm getting it right, then I'll let the chief respond. Is a 50,000 square foot building for the police investigative services, which includes forensic. You think that the need right now is just 12,000 for the forensic. Is that your question?
I think what I'm
You turn your microphone on, please.
on the short term is that 12,000 square feet. And I'm trying to get clarification on it. So I know they want to tie it to the balance of the 50,000 foot or square foot facility. Understanding the ability to raise capital at this time, I want to make sure that we don't lose sight of the most acute issue that we're trying to address, and that is the crowding and overcrowding, quite frankly, and the lack of good quality workspace for our forensic department. So I want to address that, Mr. Chair. There's 12,000 square feet. I need to understand, can we break that piece out? Is there a way that we could address that on the immediate horizon?
Chief?
Thank you, Chair, and through you, I draw your attention to page 2 of the report down the bottom under the Police Investigative Services Headquarters entry. And all of those board reports are listed. This board has already had this debate. The board has already previously approved this. There is extensive reporting that has taken place, and in 2010, this board has already passed that motion, and that is why we are moving forward with the board's approval from 2010 for a 50,000 square foot facility. And Mr. Bowman is here if you'd like to have him answer any other questions.
Okay, and whether Mr. Bowman answers this, but I think the question was, can you live with 12 instead of 50 despite previous resolutions? Can you carve out the forensic part and do the investigative services later? Dan?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've already proceeded. We've engaged the architect. We've already committed a substantial amount of work and committed money towards the design of the 50,000 square foot facility. So to move back on that right now would not be advantageous. We've always taken the position that we're operating at a significant deficit and have for a number of years, that being the 50,000 square foot. Forensics is a piece of that, and there are significant other portions of our organization that are as equally as cramped, as well as they are separated into 4 different facilities. So that creates an operational injustice in trying to manage that important division within our facility.
Terry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess the challenge I'm having is when we built the City Hall, 2/3 of our staff are leasing in downtown areas. Not probably the most efficient, some could argue, but that is a decision, a conscious decision Council made based on affordability and our capital ability to address the significant capital deficit that we have in this community. So when I take that backdrop and say the city's making their sacrifices in regards to facilities, because we have a facility deficit too, then I look at this and I say, what is the police prepared to sacrifice? So between ownership and leasing, what can we do? And I think I heard through the process of the forensic center that you exhausted many looks at many buildings, and to meet that requirement you needed for forensic, that was very tough to find a building that would have those sort of unique features. So I accepted that in the context of this building, but now understanding that we have a financial crunch on a capital side, I'm saying let's maybe rethink this in the interim. Deal with the acute issues first, which is the forensic 12,000 square feet, and maybe lease the additional space that's needed on the midterm until we can certainly find ourselves a way above water, or if other levels of government come forward with capital grants or infrastructure dollars to facilitate. I'm looking, is there anything more we can do creatively to meet our immediate needs without jeopardizing the people that are working in those areas?
Sorry, through you, Chair, if I can just speak to a number of those issues. At inception back in 2006, when we were looking at potentially across the street, that was on a leased basis. Some of the prohibiting and certainly cost factors were, as you mentioned, put an ISD facility with forensic requirements to change locations on a lease basis. And I don't think we're saying that. Pretty costly in terms of the HVAC systems that have to go in for the integrity of the processing of the exhibits and the space that we have. Relative to that as well, because it's an investigative facility and we looked at public space as well as space for investigative services, were the security issues. And if you recall, not to over-dramatize it, but the Oklahoma bombing, you can potentially drive a vehicle into the basement area, public space, and do bad things. That will be not a good thing. Relative to looking for spaces, we've looked at refurbished areas, properties across the city. I know that Mr. Bowman has looked at a number of those for cost effectiveness. Towards the cost effectiveness piece as well, the property we did acquire in Rebecca was done in such a manner that it's relatively low cost and reutilization of formerly provincially owned lands with the provision that it will be used for a police facility, and that reduced the cost there. With regard to being diligent on costs, and I think that's a major theme, we've also looked at, as this board knows, tripartite funding with the view that, and we don't know that it's guaranteed, with the view that the city would fund $5 million roughly, and that the additional two-thirds would be funded both by the province and the federal government. That has gone through to City Council for consideration. In terms of leased versus owned, and I know there is city policy that, and I understand that it's been changed in terms of how City Hall was done, but the policy on the books that we were following back at inception, when we looked at all these contingencies, stated that you will look at owning first and then leasing because of the cost implications of short and long-term requirements. So, to place it historically, we looked at this basically through 2006 through 9, brought to the board in 2010. At that time, we presented those contingencies about just an investigative service change. We looked at in-house as well. For that, we have interruption of business continuity. The cost per square foot, as I understand, would actually be more to build in the current existing space, and there's inadequate space locally. We also looked at a number of contingencies, and that's why we referred back to the board reports. I'm not going to pretend to do that here.
And Councillor, I've allowed you some latitude in that because I thought they were good questions of whether we can phase it. I didn't hear a definitive no, but I heard a very diplomatic no that you can't. And if we're going to revisit the whole building, I think we got to have a reconsideration motion to do that. This is about prioritizing the capital needs that the senior command has identified to us. As you know, sitting on City Council, this matter was raised at Council, and we were asked to give, in 2015, give approval that we support the project, but not for up to $5 million, conditional upon getting $10 million from the other two levels of government. And that's the process we're heading down. It was tabled at Council, as you know, to allow the chief and Dan and Mike and others to come in and just refresh everybody in the project, particularly we had 4 new members of Council. So I don't really want to reopen again because we've had this debate about whether we lease or whether we build. I think that decision is behind us. I thought it was a good question. Can you phase this building? Is it all got to be done at once? And I would have preferred either a strong yes or no, but I got a diplomatic no, and Dan's very good at being diplomatic. And so I think we just need to open the rest of the questions up because the question of whether we do the building or not, I think this board's already decided. Council has not.
Term of the board, if I understand the process, we just elected a new chair, a new vice chair. We got a new council. So somebody needs to understand me that a decision that was made by a past board, my understanding, it doesn't necessarily mean that this board is locked into that particular position. So could I ask through the appropriate staff person, are we now locked into a position that was made, 2 years ago by a previous board?
Okay, I'll answer that, but I'll let Lois pick up on that. But it's my understanding, being a member of council, and the mayor can help me with this too, is that you don't need a 2/3 majority to rescind now. But if we're going to back up, you need a majority to agree that we're going to rescind. Lois, am I close on that?
Yes, you are. The positions of the board continue and moving forward. It doesn't, because it's a new term, doesn't mean that everything from the past gets rehashed. It's It's really not the same as council with the election. The board gets changes of members all the time, and you change your chair each year. So I
Okay,
would
anything
agree
else,
with the
Councillor? Because
chair.
I have the mayor wanting to speak
and
also.
I know that we dealt with an issue that 2 months earlier we had took a position, and then within 2 months we had 50% plus one flip that position of the board, and the 2/3 standard was never applied. So
I'm not suggesting a 2/3 does apply now.
I'm just trying to understand the governance process, and having said that, I firmly believe as a new that it is a new board. It's got a new makeup. It's after a municipal election, that anything's open for reconsideration or review relative to our capital budget, understanding our capital needs. Now, if you're ruling me out of the order, fair enough. If you're ruling me out of the order that we live with decisions of the past, and that
I'm
they're
not
not open
ruling
for
it out of
discussions
order. I'm
now.
just saying you need if you want to have a reconsideration motion, you're welcome to put that up. You'll need a simple majority to agree with you to rescind.
So I'm not asking for, Mr. Chair, I'm not asking for reconsideration. What I'm asking for is if our police services could be good enough to review what they're asking for in this capital budget and look at maybe a possibility of phasing some of these programs, identifying where the heaviest or most significant priorities are, so can we at least get to those issues as we work forward to resolve the other issues. I guess I'm hearing that that isn't a possibility. It has been a possibility at the city. It's just unfortunate. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Fred.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll take you up on the notion that we move 4 of these items into 2016. I think that was let me get my the marine facility replacement expansion, the command van, the prisoner's escort vehicle, and the additional marine vessel rigid hull inflatable boat to 2016.
No, it's the marine facility replacement and the command van will go into 2016.
Okay.
2015 is the police investigative services headquarters, the prisoner escort vehicle, and the additional marine vessel, the inflatable boat.
You wanted to leave that in
And
2015?
the chief can explain to you, but it might be worthwhile to hear the explanation from the chief why those need to stay in 2015.
Okay, so let me just first of all move that we do move those items. So you mentioned, okay, I got it wrong. I got 2 items that you want to move. So 4 million and 750 into 2015. Am I right?
16.
2016, right? And the million into 2025. I heard.
Which million now? This is the
This
command
is
van?
the horse stables at the bottom.
And also, I may not have been clear, I think Marco corrected me on this, the police station 40 could also go to 2025. So I'll just run down these. The marine facility replacement would be 2016, the command van 2016, the police station 40 2025, and the horse stables 2025.
Okay, so I would initially move that, and then I wouldn't mind hearing a little more detail on the prisoner, the marine vessel and the other piece of equipment.
The prisoner thing.
Right.
Okay, and a seconder to that before we go to the chief or Terry? So, Chief, can you explain the marine facility replacement? Or I'm sorry, the prisoner escort vehicle and the additional marine vessel that you need left in 2015 and the ice rescue equipment.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Calvert's going to address those issues for us as the commander in charge of the section.
Superintendent?
Good afternoon, through you, Chair. First, the marine vessel. This purchase would be a second vessel. Currently, we have 1 vessel. The Hamilton Police Service has 1 marine vessel. If that vessel becomes, if it breaks, if there's mechanical issues, etc., we only have that vessel to respond to emergencies or any other type of issue on the water. Currently, we have a partnership with the RCMP at the Marine Unit, so every summer they will have their vessel down there, and usually 1 member from the RCMP will assist on occasion. However, that vessel is there when it can be. Sometimes it has to be removed and go to do other ventures with the RCMP. Hence, again, if we have an emergency, we have 1 vessel only, and if our vessel breaks, and it does on occasion, of course, then we're not able to respond. We would have to call other policing services to hope that they could respond for us. So that's the reason for the second vessel. Historically, we've always had 2 vessels. The reason we only have 1 now is in 2009, we had a joint venture with Halton for a number of years, so we had a number of vessels. as a result, 2009, they decided to part ways, and we ran our section, they ran theirs. They took the vessels that they had, and they'd purchased new ones once they left. We were left with one vessel. Since 2010, we've only had the one vessel. We have run into difficulties. Thankfully, the RCMP was there, and we were able to use their vessel. So will this happen? Does this happen if we only have one vessel? Yes, it does. It could break down, and we may not be able to respond to emergencies. That's the request I put forward for the second vessel.
Okay, thank you.
What about the prisoner escort vehicle?
Yep.
I don't know anything about the prisoner escort vessel per se. I can't answer that question, unfortunately.
Chief?
The additional or the replacement of the prisoner escort vehicle is to replace an older vehicle. And this is a specific vehicle designed for handling prisoners and bringing them into the 10 John Street facility, Sapinka. It's a low-profile vehicle. It has a lower roof in order to get into the underground there, and it has separated compartments. So it's specifically designed and much different than a paddy wagon. It's for moving multiple people at the same time.
Schmer?
Okay, so thank you for that. I appreciate that. So I'll move what I originally moved just a minute ago. That was seconded. And then a question on the, or not a question, actually a comment on the investigative services headquarters piece. I mean, I think what we're doing here is we're leveraging provincial and federal dollars. My understanding is if we don't get those provincial and federal dollars, we're not moving on this until we do, which in my mind is a great opportunity for us to use other levels of funding to achieve some goals that has been long-standing goals. Actually, these are not developed and brought to this table yesterday. But I'm hearing the councillor's concern, and I think if we need to reconfirm the decision here at the board, I don't see any harm in doing that. So if you know, I would move, you know, or someone could move at the appropriate time that we confirm the decision of the board in terms of the direction on this, and then it will be presented at council at the appropriate time. And I think. Again, I think once they see the whole picture, I think it's a rational, reasonable approach in terms of accommodation needs and certainly the forensics needs. And I did have the opportunity of having a look at the forensic lab, and I won't say too much about it, but in my mind, there's a lot left to be desired there. So I think there's room for significant improvement, and I think that's a wise investment from where I sit. So I'm supportive. I think it'd be not at all harmful to test the will of the board and to reconfirm, and then we can move on to other important items. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for your motion. So the ones that remain then in 2015 is the investigative headquarters, the prisoner escort vehicle, the additional marine vessel, the $210,000, and the ice rescue equipment. Did you want to ask a question about the ice?
And to ask again, these are not approved projects. These are projects that are in the capital budget, but come to this board for approval one by one. And if we fail to approve, we fail to approve. But it's still to come here for further approval. This is not a blanket approval of all of these projects.
Thanks for keeping an eye on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Walt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With respect to the back to the marine facility replacement, and through you, Mr. Chair, and the marine vessel, can I ask Superintendent Calvert or anybody, is there provincial funding that's available for this?
Mr. Chair, as far as the facility goes, I couldn't tell you if there's funding available for that or not. Mr. Mobin would be able to speak to that. As far as the vessel goes, I'm not aware of any funding, both provincially or federally, that would allow us any funds to acquire that vessel.
Deputy, do you have a comment on that?
Sorry, just to add to that, when we contemplated the original marine facility, as it was reported to the board in 2010, and then ultimately went to council and got approved, the view was, could we do it with partners, whether it was EMS or fire, or otherwise. So that was contemplated in that expansion at the time. Now, to your question about provincial funding, that didn't exist at that time. Would there be opportunities that would present before we actually get to that stage? They may. We're certainly attentive to that. But this time, but we would be looking to partnership.
Oh.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Terry, for a second time.
took a look at the state of the current circumstances which our forensic workers are working in. And I guess my concern is how many more years can go by without addressing that immediate acute issue. So if you're hanging your hat on whether you're going to get the the dollars from the provincial and federal government this year or next year or the year after, you still got a problem. It's not going away. And I thought that if we could separate that problem and address it, the more immediate needs, that gives us some breathing room. And I'm not hearing that. So I guess my concern is that 1 minute I'm telling it's an acute issue and it's an issue that needs to urgently be addressed and to look what our, maybe crossing contamination and all those issues in this very crowded space, and we got to get it done. But we're prepared to wait to see if funding is available. So help me understand that. That's just, I guess, where my confusion is.
If I could reply to that through you, Chair. I don't think it's a question of waiting. We certainly have, and on the record, stated the acute need dates back to at least 2006. What we were tasked with was, do you have creative ways to look at funding that will have less impact on the local municipal levy? Towards that end, we've sought out, and largely that work's been done through Superintendent Shea and the Chief, to look for alternate strategies for provincial and federal funding involving infrastructure grants and things like that. So the task was not further deferral. In fact, the risk still exists. We've highlighted that. It remains. It's not to defer it, and our intent is not to defer it. Our intent is to seek out other creative solutions for funding.
Okay, so is there a plan B if the funding doesn't come forward to deal with that occupational issue in the forensic area? Sure.
There's many other plans, and it's contingent on the decision making that happens that dictate what those plans would be. And quite frankly, it's been shifting sands between whether we've built on the current land we've acquired. We investigated across the street at 140 King William for a number of needs, including a storefront operation on King Street, which was contemplated. Went through many exercises with City Hall. They made decisions relative to funding that's acquired through the parking lands there. We've respected those studies and the decisions of council. So quite frankly, we've had numerous plans through the incarnations from 2006 to present day. I would suspect that would continue based on some of the decisions that are made.
On the Marine unit, $4 million. We had an arrangement with Halton at one time. Can you just refresh my memory? That deal fell apart at some point. You're now looking for a $4 million facility. You're looking for additional boats. If I remember right, the waters actually falls under the federal jurisdiction. It's not a city jurisdiction because it's a shipping navigation. That's why you have a port authority. So I need to understand who jurisdiction is Lake Ontario and the harbor, one. Two, why? What happened in the partnership with Halton to hopefully alleviate us of some of these costs? Something went wrong. I need to understand what went wrong, why they made that decision, and what did we do to try and maintain that partnership so we can alleviate costs at both ends? I know that Halton still comes into the harbor quite frequently because I'm a boater, and I've seen Halton in the harbor patrolling the Burlington shoreline. So again, I need to understand what happened to the partnership. We also have the Marine, the volunteer group on Lake Ontario. I can't remember what they're called. It's in Councillor Collins' ward. Beach Rescue Unit. They do an incredible job on the beach. So I'm just trying to understand what have we done creatively to alleviate $4,210,000, $500,000 in expenditures for foreseeable future.
I think it's important to note, too, Chief, I just want to point this out, and you can reinforce it or say that it's not correct. The $4 million for the marine facility replacement was a request from the city. It's part of the waterfront redevelopment, and they want us to move to a new location, as I recall. Yeah. And so it's not the services request, it's coming from the city.
Yeah. No, I understand that, Mr. Chair, but
you're asking about the $4 million, that's what it is.
I could get a pretty nice garage for $4 million, so I need to understand how you quantify $4 million for a new a shop to park your boat.
You're correct, Chair. It is not a request of the police service. It is a request of the city, and this board has previously approved the plan to show the willingness of the board in our facilities management to work collaboratively with the city. And that board report indicates that we currently have a facility and we currently have a location, and we are quite content there. We recognize that that facility needs upgrading and updating. But the issue is fitting into the bigger picture of what the city is trying to do with waterfront redevelopment. The board report that is already approved clearly says that we are quite happy to go where the city wants us to go and fit into the plans that the city is making. So this is not really a request of our service. And the discussions that have taken place to date, it is not a place to park your boat. It is a operational marine facility that is joined with the paramedics, because there is no waterfront paramedic response at this point either. So it was a joint facility, and the plans are already done. The plans are already done, sitting on the shelf waiting for the decision of the city on planning. With respect to our agreement with our colleagues in Halton, nothing went wrong with that relationship. Nothing was soured in any way, shape, or form. Halton made a decision to run their own marine unit, which is entirely their decision to make, and they made it. We feel the implications of that now, where it means we don't have access to staff and we don't have access to other facilities, other officers and other equipment. With respect to beach rescue, it continues to operate as it does. With respect to the other item on here, with respect to ice rescue, right now there is, as required in law, a requirement for our service to patrol the waterways. It's in the Act. We don't have a choice. So the councillor is correct that there are other jurisdictions out there that are responsible for many things, but it depends under what authority they're operating. Canada Shipping Act, what our federal partners are doing with respect to terrorism, drug interdiction, human trafficking, smuggling, all of those things that fall at different levels of the continuum. And I would say that we need to leave that at the federal realm, that we don't want to take that on. But the responsibility that we have right now on the water is huge, and our investment in responding to that is not significant enough that we can provide that adequate and effective policing on the water.
And I learned that at a gender review, Councillor, that I was surprised fire doesn't do ice rescue, but apparently as soon as they put their toe in the water, it becomes a police jurisdiction. And of course, they need to go rescue someone from the water in an ice situation. That's why the ice rescue equipment, I was questioning that. Why are we doing that?
Yeah, no, I in fact, if you noted, I didn't ask any questions on that particular piece.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to bring up? I want to move on to...
Well, the other one I failed to mention was the Coast Guard, of course. I've seen the Coast Guard on a number of occasions along the beachfront in the past, so I'm not sure if they come into the harbor. So there's so many jurisdictions in the harbor. Halton, our own police, RCMP, Coast Guard. That's not a huge geographic area. Certainly the harbor isn't. I don't think we have any responsibility outside on Lake Ontario. Is that correct? We do? So what?
Chief?
How many kilometers out?
We would go right out to the international border.
Okay. And that's our patrol area? So you got Coast Guard, RCMP, Halton Police, Hamilton Police, Coast Guard patrolling right up to the international border from... Okay, I mean, it really is getting fuzzy, and maybe this is what is
I think we need to move along, Council, because this is off in future years anyway. It's not for 2015.
Fair enough.
You know, and so I heard the mayor move item 6.2, except for the 4 dates changes, and I think, Lois, you have those. You want me to read them out again? You have them? You have them? So it's duly moved and second. There's nobody else on the speaker's list. All in favor? Opposed? I think that carried unanimously then. You didn't put your hand up. Okay, so Councillor Whitehead is opposed. Now, Mr. Mayor, you were suggesting that we should maybe have a reconfirmation of Madeline.
Happy to put a motion forward to reconfirm our board commitment to the
Police Investigative Services
Yes.
Headquarters.
I'm happy to put that
Is there a
motion
second
forward.
to that? Stan?
What that means.
Okay, it was duly moved and second, just at the mayor's suggestion, just to reconfirm the board's commitment to that.
To 15.
Correct. Yeah, 16,500 is what it says here.
16.5.
Okay, further discussion on that? Yes, Irene. Suggestion of the mayor that we, because it's a new board, that we're not necessarily bound by previous boards, so let's just reconfirm it then with this board. And then this board is now committed for the next 4 years of supporting that project if the motion carries. Depends on the vote. Well, you're putting it in jeopardy if you vote against it. Madeline's motion, in fact, reading you correct, Reverend, your motion is that this new board reconfirm their commitment to this project, correct?
Well, there was a discussion around that, and Terry had spoken to that, and then he pulled it. I mean, do we
Well, I heard the mayor suggest it, that's why I opened it up, and then I heard you make that
Okay,
motion,
that's-
that
okay.
we reconfirm our commitment to this project. Obviously, this
Well,
isn't
it's on the
clear to
motion,
some
so-
members, so I just want to make sure we understand what we're doing. Councilor Whitehead pointed out, and for good reason, this is a new board. It was the previous board that made the commitment to this project. It's a large amount of money. It's a critical project, so let's just get it reconfirmed if that's the intent of the new board. Madeline, or Irene, you still have the floor. Madeline, can you turn your microphone off, please?
The chief had his hand up. Is he going to explain it better?
Okay, then try it, Chief.
If I can offer some assistance, if I'm listening to what the mayor has said, in reconfirming, are you asking for a presentation of the previous report to this board to get?
No, just reconfirming the project.
Okay.
Do you understand it now, Irene, or do you want the chief to explain it again? Okay, Stan. Turn your microphone on.
I seconded Madeline's motion, but quite frankly, what happens if we have already built half the facility and then we say, well, you know what, that was another board. Let's reconsider and put ourselves in total jeopardy. But I want to take my seconding away because quite frankly, if it was decided 4 years ago or 5 years ago or 3 years ago, that board at that time had the mandate to do what it did. And it had the mandate to...
I think, Stan, this motion is not at risk. Let's just get it behind us.
What?
This motion is not at risk. You know, if the mayor says he's supporting it, I'm hearing everybody supporting it. It might have one opposed vote, but the motion is not at risk. So let's just let the vote be carried if that's okay with you.
The only thing is, we don't want to set a precedent that what we decide today, 4 years from now, may be set aside because they're a new board that knew more.
Circumstances.
I mean, circumstances can change, but quite frankly, I'm in everyone's hands. I don't want to find the other board. The other board made their decision based on rational decision, based on the information they had at that time, based on the presentation they had at that time. It's something in the future. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we have to respect prior boards, and we expect to be recognized for the work we do as well.
But any member can put a motion up. You've heard the motion under the recommendation of the mayor by the vice chair that we reconfirm our commitment to this project. You can oppose that. You can support that. Now, did you say you withdrawn your seconder on that?
I will not withdraw it, but I don't want it to be a precedent going forward that we can change what's gone before, because there could be a capital commitment that's been acted upon.
I think it makes it easier for us who are on council, though, that the new board also supports it, because this is not going to be an easy sell at council, because there's so many other demands. as the chair, I think it would be helpful for me to take this to council that the new board has reconfirmed their commitment to this project.
On that basis, that it will be reconfirmed. I'm seconding it.
Okay. Walt, you got a question?
I'm very followed.
Good. You're teaching us law. Jerry?
There's no harm, because I mean, it goes back to council, and I respect those that would be, whatever position you take. There's no question that if this board is reaffirming a particular position, it doesn't weaken your hand in any way. I agree with that there's no harm in reaffirming this particular position. I guess my challenge, Mr. Chair, for clarification is I support the concept. I support the principle. I don't support the concept. And what I mean by that is you got a $15 million project. You got 12,000 that is in need now, and I'm being folded into a 50,000 square foot. So I guess I can't break it apart, so I'm going to have to vote against it for those reasons.
Although I would encourage you, like I did and some others did, have Mike Shea give you that 4-hour tour through the investigative unit. You may change your view. And because it certainly changed my view when I saw it firsthand.
Mr. Chair, we're not short. I can tell you right now, we're not short of industrial or otherwise property that can store vehicles and cars and et cetera. We don't need more boardrooms, fancy boardrooms. There's many components of this 50,000 square feet that are not necessary at this time and could be facilitated in other ways, and that's my issue.
Okay. Walt, do you have something else you want to say, or can we call the question?
Yeah, the only thing I was going to say is that to Member Tick, maybe we could address if there's any precedents during the governance meetings.
Okay, so we have a motion duly moved and second to reconfirm our commitment to the investigative unit building. All in favor? Opposed? One opposed. Okay. So the capital budget is now approved, and we're going to move on to another little item, which I think is the budget. Item 6.3, which is the Hamilton Police Services operating budget. And so this was tabled at the last meeting to allow the opportunity for members to ask the chief or any other members of senior command or the finance staff any questions they may have, which I supported. And so it's back to you tonight. I think we have to prove it tonight because we're doing the presentation to the General Issues Committee next week. So we need to make a decision on this tonight. So maybe to start off, can I get a motion to approve the budget? Then we'll open it up for discussion because we have to do something nice. You're moving it, Madeline? Seconded by Irene. Okay, Terry, you want to discuss it?
Yeah, first of all, I want to thank my colleagues around this horseshoe that allowed the additional month. I mean, it's never good, especially in the eyes of the taxpayer, when the first time you see a budget, you rubber stamp it on that very moment. I think it is good to have sober thought and step back and hear the comments, hear the concerns, and investigate. I also want to thank the deputies for standing up to the plate and John and Walt, which we did meet with the police services. We did go through, and I think one of my big concerns is if there are areas that you haven't expended and there's a trend, then we should be eliminating that portion of the budget. I was assured that is in fact the case, that was an exercise that did go through, which raised my comfort level. So the questions I had to ask, I asked, the answers I received, and going in the future, so I will be supporting this budget without question. I mean, it is the best we could do under the current circumstances. I would ask, though, and I know that there might be a difference of opinion, but the explanation for the budget process was the board directed it. Fair enough. Because it was being done behind closed doors, and therefore we could have a more transparent process. The problem is, it's not a transparent process because the budget is being presented by staff who construct it behind closed doors and then presents it to us in open session, and we don't get that detailed line-by-line type presentation. So I would only ask going forward, Mr. Chair, if there's more ownership for this board, because it is our budget. It is our budget. I'd rather have board members in a subcommittee working behind closed doors with staff line by line on that budget and have ownership when that budget comes back to this board than having staff work behind closed doors and just presenting a budget that we automatically have to see or nay to. I think there's more ownership, and I think it shows more engagement by the board. So I only put that suggestion forward at this point, but I wholeheartedly support what's here as far as the budget is.
Okay, Irene, you had a question or comment?
I want to apologize that I wasn't here for the initial meeting on the budget. Circumstances were such that I couldn't be here. But I do have a couple of questions that I would like to address.
Absolutely.
Chief? How does the board have confidence that the mobile crisis rapid response team focused on mental health is the best value for the investment?
Chief?
That's an excellent question as we move forward with the proposal that is before you. We have run the proof of concept project for the last year, and we have seen that our target in dealing with those that suffer mental health and addictions vulnerabilities on our streets that end up as people experiencing crisis. We did estimate that in the first year the rapid response team would deal with approximately 250 people. And in fact, at the end of the year, and I don't have the report specifically here before me, but it's in excess of 600 people that were dealt with by the rapid response team. We do know that our apprehension rate for our frontline officers is about 70% of the time that we attend those type of calls. But with the expertise of the rapid response team, we're actually reducing the apprehension rate from 70 to 28%. The more important component of that is that although the apprehensions by the mental health worker and police officer are down, the admission rate has risen to 82%. So it is the right people at the right time that are being screened and diagnosed on the street, if you will, and then taken to the proper care. So there is great value in that, and we're addressing the issue of stigma and stigma reduction through the St. Joe's protocol, and it is a combined program. We can't look at rapid response team just in isolation, but also the component of COAST. So now we have a 24, 48-hour response. We have the emergency suicide prevention line. We have 911 officers responding for the immediate threat to life or death situations. And now we have the mental health worker and police officer in this model as a first response option, the first of its kind in Canada, to respond in this manner. This recommendation, and talking about value for dollar, we've already seen that value in the savings that are being produced by those that we actually avoid taking to the emergency room, tying up doctors, tying up hospitals, but getting the proper care. Then when you add into it the component of our strategy that deals with the social navigator, getting people help before the crisis, the holistic approach is very impressive, and we're very proud of the service for taking this stance. The value for dollar will continue to be monitored. We will continue to report. We have established now within the service an overarching committee that is dealing with, which is the standing committee dealing with people in crisis, which will continue to ensure that we are receiving that best value for dollar. But for our police officers, right now on our front line, the recovering of time for us that goes right back into patrol is what is really helping out with our staffing issues as well. So on all of those fronts, it's a very positive project. It is integral to providing appropriate services on our streets to those people that suffer those vulnerabilities. The other important thing to recognize is that the local LIN, under the direction of CEO Donna Cripps, has reviewed our project. I've personally met with her, and the LIN has provided baseline funding to St. Joe's to provide the mental health workers, and that means the program is thoroughly entrenched within the hospital side, and now we need to match that on the police side. And this is about providing excellent service in the greatest opportunity to provide those resources to our frontline officers that give them the most success opportunities in resolving these peacefully.
Thank you, Chief. We're very fortunate in Hamilton to have this program. Are there any programs like this across Canada?
There are mobile crisis response teams, but they are not a first response option, which means it is still the police officers that are dealing with those in those other jurisdictions. So we are the first to actually make our program a first response option.
I just have one more question.
Go ahead.
Chief.
Floor is yours.
Appendix B in the budget, when you see an increase of 172%, you have to ask a question. So my question is, I noticed that new computers are required for the youth officers and school officers. How will this help to improve services in relation to schools and help address youth crime?
Thank you for that. So the request is for Division 2, and you'll see as a percentage, it is 172%, but the dollars are increasing by $11,200. So we're talking about a number of computers, but it also is the mobile data terminals within the vehicles. Part of our response, if we're dealing with an active shooter or we're dealing with situations that are evolving in the schools, and obviously that's been heightened lately, is the officers relied singularly on the radio, mobile radio in the vehicle, but did not have access to mobile data terminal. And obviously we transmit in both modes, one by radio, but also by mobile data terminal. Because they're out in the community and largely visiting a number of schools throughout the day, the premise was that they should probably be having the same equipment. It was part of cost reductions and part of savings, not to equip them with it, but by virtue of what's been happening and emerging relative to that, we want them to have the equipment inside the vehicles. And the same thing with regard to having access in their offices, to work in their offices on, obviously, the reports that they generate through what they do. So it's twofold. One in the cars and one in the stations. Total dollar increase is $11,000.
Thank you very much.
That's it? Okay, I have no other speakers, and so it's been duly moved. Mayor Eisenberger, it's all yours.
So I previously indicated support for the budget largely as a result of the kind of the mental health focus on the extra staffing, which I think is absolutely brilliant. But I do recall that there was a request to ask for additional information on items of the budget, and maybe I missed it when I left here for 5 minutes. You leave for 5 minutes, you can miss a lot. So I was wondering what areas were actually considered and looked at and evaluated, and what was the end result? Through you to staff or to?
Through you, Chair. And I know that Councillor White has already reported on it. Fundamentally, what we were tasked with after the last board meeting was clarification, one on training and conferences and how those work. As a result of the questions, I believe what the councillor found was that we're looking for efficiencies in providing that training. One, we had mandatory requirements through adequacy for specific courses. If you're a child abuse investigator, sexual assault investigator, those are mandated adequacy standards. So to do a train the trainer situation is not always practical. They need the skill set either by attending Canadian Police College or largely Ontario Police College. That's fundamentally the places that they attend. With regard to our new multi-agency training academy, we've taken the opportunity to work with things like Ontario Police College and host the training sessions in our own facility. That leads to reductions in travel costs, accommodation costs, per diem costs. But we also, through the work of Superintendent Clark, offset those costs by asking other agencies if they'd like to attend, obviously charging them a reasonable fee, but that defers the cost. So overall, we get more training locally at lower cost. Last piece is with training, the trainer, we do employ that where we can, where it's not adequacy driven. So for example, if it's a general course, say on warrants or evolution of the law, we'll have one or two people attend that course, bring it back to the other unit. Let's say it's sexual assault again, or those specialized areas. With regard to conferences, we don't actually have a great number of conferences within the service. Things like the Ontario Homicide Investigators Association regularly hosts a conference. It is specialized to that particular area. They're not often offering the core courses for homicide investigation at these other facilities. This is something done through practitioners in the field. So largely the content is current by practitioners, hosted by them, and the costs are not large. Again, we send not everybody, but in proportion to who needs it or who can going for the fourth time may not be a good thing. We want to share that amongst our members. So lastly, in regard to our training costs, we've looked, as Councillor noted, about the actual spent over the last 3 years. And if it hadn't been spent, we did in fact reduce our training budget by about almost $20,000 this year. Some of that is availability of courses. We have had increases. For example, in the ICE unit, which is the child exploitation technical crime sections, some of those courses are in places like US only by, let's say, Microsoft or other vendors who are providing this training. So it's not generally available. We'll have to go to them. I think that's the other piece. The other one had to do with allocations of costs relative to contingencies for the collective agreement. And obviously, I won't get into dollar amounts, but we did with Councillor. I believe that covers those two items from the last budget session, predominantly.
Thank you. So I want to thank and compliment Councillor Whitehead. I mean, we're digging into the budgets, and an interactive process, I think, is quite appropriate, and I think it's a healthy way to kind of get to understand and appreciate all the variable issues. And questions are questions, and they need to have answers. So I do appreciate that work. But we also have issues that we have to deal with on a policing basis, and I think the budget that I see here is largely a maintenance budget, save and except the mental health piece. And I think we've all talked often about how do we become more proactive and more able to deal with those crises before they become even greater crises. And I think that's the focus of the additional staffing here. And I think that is a very positive step forward for our community. So I'm supportive of the budget as it sits today, and I thank all those that have put time and effort into bringing it here, and look forward to next steps.
Thank you. Yeah, I think it was a good idea to defer it the month to allow us to digest it. I know a lot of us had questions. We went to different staff members to get them answered. And so it was a good process through July 1 month. Yeah. Paul?
I just wanted to, I am also in support of the budget, but I have a more of a comfort zone. I come out of the entrepreneurial side, so it's a little difficult for me because I'm always used to seeing auditors' reports, and in this case here, it's as we found out, the more and more that we looked into this, the more difficult it was to actually figure out how to audit a budget like this, or a budget. So I think just from my thoughts and from my past experiences, and I realize that this is different. It would be really good if we had could have access to maybe the consolidated audit for next budget.
Yeah, the City of Hamilton does audit police service. KPMG is part of their program, and maybe you might like to see KPMG come in and speak to the board. I know we have the auditor come in and speak to the Hamilton Housing Board. Right. If you want the auditor to come in here, we can arrange for that.
Well, it's just a thought, and I think that would help with the board members. It would actually help with the public. At the same time, I know that everybody's talking about the various different audits and everything. I've learned over the past month that means a whole bunch of different things, and then thanks to the city staff for putting up with all of us, I'm sure. And the questions that we've been writing around, and we did, so if we can actually get some kind of access in the new year, those are just my feelings right now. But that's what I would like to add to this.
Okay, I see.
Can I move that?
Well, let's get the motion that's on the floor off the table first. Then anybody can put any other motion up they want. So, you want to speak again, or are you voting on the motion? Well, let me call the question. So, all in favor of the budget? That carries unanimously. Okay. Walt, you have another motion you'd like to place?
Yes, I would like to put a motion towards having access either to the consolidated audit.
Or would you prefer to have KPMG, our external auditors, come in and speak to the board?
And to have KPMG.
I don't think you want that whole audit for the whole city.
No, not the whole audit, but with respect to this budget.
Yeah, so we'll just invite, can I just narrow that down then, that we'll invite KPMG to attend a future meeting to answer any questions about their audit?
Correct.
All right.
You said it well.
Mayor, second it. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Okay. We're making good progress. Is there any other business we need to talk about? Councillor Whitehead.
I'm just going to ask, there's two areas I want to focus on. One is when I came in, was asked by a spectator, are we having trouble with our website? Because apparently they're having a heck of a time accessing our website over the office computers, and it's hit and miss over the smartphone as well. So there seems to be a challenge for people to access our website.
Chief?
I've not been informed that there is a problem with the website, and I would ask Ross Memolo, who heads that area, to be able to address
Through you, Mr. Chair. I did receive a request from our media relations officer, I guess, in speaking to some of the media. We did look at the one incident. I believe it was yesterday between 12 and noon. Is that the one you're referring to? Yes, so I've asked both the city, who I deal with directly, and there was no sign of any abnormal activity, and as well my own staff. So there was nothing, and there were some unusually high requests in terms of sort of statistically in terms of what we normally get, so that could have been attributed to that slowness. So it was just normal activity.
Okay. Well, I would ask you, my understanding the spectator was having a challenge getting access to our system, and so I would ask that we just follow up with the spectator to see if those problems are sorted out.
Do you have a name for the spec that they
Yeah,
can
Mr. Duffy.
Oh, okay. So Bill.
Yeah, and one of the follow-up as well is we are looking at it, and we do monitor it every day for any unusual activity. That's just standard protocol. So certainly if there are any unusual activities, we deal with those, but we'll certainly look at it a little deeper. But yes, I would like to hear a little more.
So, which begs the next question, Mr. Chair, is that I believe that we're doing our development of our business plan currently, and we're using the internet, I guess our website and that to do that. Is that correct?
Chief?
That's correct, but access and sending out the survey and all that, that has already been finished, overdone, and in fact, one of those components is closed and wasn't involved in any technical problems that we're aware of.
And are we going to be doing any consultation in the broader community, community town hall, electronic community town hall, anything whatsoever to engage the broader community other than through the internet?
The business planning process has previously already been approved by the board, which does include the community component. And in fact, there are 2.5 days of sessions that will involve the broader community.
Great. Do those dates or do you have those dates now that you can announce them? Never miss a chance to advertise something, and this is live stream, so it's an opportunity to do so.
Through you, Mr. Chair, our business planning process will happen on a 2.5-day session. The first half day is on April the 24th. It's a Friday. It's from 1 to 4. It's going to be a pre-planning conference to get a common understanding as to what are some of the factors that are affecting policing in the Hamilton police area. And as well, there will be a 2-day planning conference on Thursday and Friday of the next week, which would be April the 30th and Friday, May the 1st. And that would be 2 full days, 8 to 4. And the community participations as well as internal participants will be invited to this process.
And what is the location for both those?
It will be held at St. Joseph's Healthcare System, West 5th Campus.
It's 4 days, isn't it?
Yeah, it's God's country. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Irene, did you have a question or comment?
Not a question, a comment. I've been a member of the governance committee, and I would just like to make a recommendation to be replaced on this committee by our legal expert.
Okay, so
So do I need a
you're asking,
motion?
you're submitting a resignation then to a member of the committee?
Yes. Do I need a motion for that?
I don't think so. I think you just tell us you're resigning, but you can then move the motion that Member Tick. I think Irene just did it. You can second it. Do you accept the position? All in favor? Carried. Any other new business we need to talk about? Irene, is there anything else?
Oh, no, sorry.
Okay, get your mic on. Any other new business? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Moved by the mayor, second by Member Tick. All in favor? So we're going to adjourn then for 10 minutes, then reconvene back in camera.